We will be discussing the importance of education in Texas. This is the most important political issue in Texas for the year 2020. And this is for a large number of reasons. Of course, this year has been crazy and it has shown us that nothing is guaranteed and it has sown a bit of fear in us. Um, we don't know how the economy is going to look a year from now. We don't know what the job market is going to look 6 months from now. So, education for us as a society is a very meaningful way to go ahead and achieve social mobility. Education is the most reliable way to equip our kids the um, with the skills and the knowledge needed to gain more employment opportunities. More employment opportunities mean higher wages. Higher wages mean that people have more disposable incomes that they can use to stimulate the economy. Because disposable income means you can spend money and help businesses, and it's all a cycle. It's economic growth, basically. Prosperous, well-paying jobs mean prosperous, successful families who are able to pay for their kids' college tuitions, and that essentially means that the socioeconomic success cycle can be repeated. Now, the public school system in Texas provides kids with vital lessons in social skills, communication skills, logical and critical thinking skills, as well as problem solving skills. All of these are super necessary for kids to have when they reach adulthood. And the critical thinking and logical thinking skills are vital in forging intelligent, participating citizens who must make informed decisions when electing officials and participating in the democratic process. More educated and informed citizens means that they will likely elect more competent and informed public officials who will seek to better laws for a more stable and just society. So everybody benefits from kids getting a good education that way. And finally, education is the best way to empower regular citizens and provide them with the tools necessary to resolve a wide range of societal issues. They become more involved in things like immigration and social policies, such as understanding systemic racism, corruption, gun control. All of those are super important, and they become more involved members of their community too. They volunteer more. They do other things for the community to help them. Everybody benefits from a better education. Now, unfortunately, the education system in Texas is kind of underfunded. It has a couple of issues. Of course, like I just said, it's underfunded, but also there is a huge teacher shortage. And it has been exacerbated by the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic, unfortunately. The shortage of funding is due to the fact that the state of Texas public school funding has declined through the years. Actually, according to an article in the Washington Post, a decade ago, Texas contributed to 48.5% of the cost of education, but by 2017, it actually declined to 42.4%. And the article actually goes on to quote Carol Barris, who is a public school education expert hailing from New York. And she explains that the fourth grade national reading proficiency ranking of Texas actually dropped from 41 to 46th in the United States in recent years. And of course, this is attributed to the fact that school funding has decreased, and that's fed into an inequitable school funding system, which was all, it just got worse. So Texas public school education officials want to introduce outcomes-based funding to fund schools. But this is actually pretty absurd because that's like running a business. It's like saying if schools aren't getting the necessary results through the state testing, then we will be defunding them. And that's unfair because most of the schools who do well with state testing tend to be higher income schools. And that is because higher income schools have the resources to help kids who are falling behind, whereas lower income schools and lower income districts don't really have the resources they need in order to help those kids who are falling behind. So of course they're going to have lower test scores, and that's kind of going to perpetuate or widen the gap between the rich and the poor. So that's not a really good idea. If I was a public school official, I would probably just change that by going ahead and funding the lower income schools. Of course, still funding the high income schools, but just putting a lot more resources into the lower income schools, since that's where more monetary attention is involved. And probably the critics would be saying that I was throwing away money and trying to fix an issue without having a sure way to measure performance. With nothing guaranteeing performance. But I'd probably counter that by saying that we could keep the outcomes-based idea as a method of keeping schools accountable to delivering the desired student achievement outcomes and making sure they are properly allocating the funds. The moment student achievement outcomes drop dramatically, or if holes are found in school spending, I'd probably decrease funding. Increased funding for the school struggling will ultimately help level the playing field for the poverty-stricken students and hopefully help them attain a higher education. Of course, the second issue that we're faced with is the Texas public education system having a lack of teachers. And this goes hand in hand with funding, because this is also characterized by high turnover. Actually, and according to an article by Andrea Zielinski for the Houston Chronicle, almost 1 out of every 3 public school teachers quit their teaching jobs before their sixth school year. And this happened to increase to 31.3% in 2018. And it hasn't really changed because public officials are trying to make that go away. But because Texas's population growth is one of the biggest in the United States, demand for high-quality public school teachers keeps increasing. So to make matters worse, of course, the 2020 pandemic has hit Texas hard during the summer, and schools were forcing teachers to come back to in-class teaching with little regard to their safety. So over 74,600 education jobs have been lost in Texas due to the pandemic. And some of them many of them are due to the fact that school districts are unwilling to accommodate teachers who had pre-existing health conditions and worried about getting sick with coronavirus. So some were left to use up their paid sick leave days, and others had to quit altogether. But this is a huge blow to schools since they are already suffering with understaffing. So the way I'd probably solve this is by being a little bit more flexible with teachers and allowing teachers who want to work or who can't really work in school to work from home. And in the long term, I'd probably go ahead and increase wages and benefits for teachers all around. And critics would probably use examples of states where wage increases didn't really fix teacher shortages to counter my measures. But I would probably counter by making propaganda about how important and necessary teachers are in Texas, kind of like how they do with the military, where they're like, go join the military, it's amazing. I'd be like, go be a teacher, it's amazing. And I'd launch another program dedicated towards student loan forgiveness for aspiring Texas teachers, regardless of where they chose to work, with added monetary bonuses if they got to work in disadvantaged or rural areas. So that's my thing.